A very good morning, students. Welcome to online classes. On behalf of the college management, ISL Engineering College and Humanities and Sciences Department and Computer Science and Engineering Department, I welcome you all. This semester, the Programming for Problem Solving course is for first year Group B students. The IT, ECE and Mechanical from Group B and Triple E people from Group A, Triple E students from Group A will also join us. So in this semester, we're gonna complete this Programming for Problem Solving course as part of your regular academics. In today's session, we will see the syllabus of PPS, that is nothing but, in short, we call this Programming for Problem Solving course as PPS course or PPS subject. It is a lab oriented subject. So parallel to the theory classes, you people will also have lab sessions. Yes, quickly, without much ado, we need to see the syllabus of this PPS subject. Okay, as I said, this PPS course, it is for Group B students in this even semester or second semester of your first year. Yeah, if you see the course structure, the complete course structure of this Programming for Problem Solving, yes, the course name, it is Programming for Problem Solving, and in short we said we call it as PPS, and we also have a lab associated with this subject, and the lab name is PPS lab itself, Programming for Problem Solving lab. And if you see the codes, code of this PPS subject, it is ES107CS, and the lab code, it is ES155CS, and it is a core subject. And when it comes to scoring credits, if you successfully complete this theory course, you will get 3 credits, and for the lab we have 2 credits. So if you complete this PPS, both lab as well as theory, you will get 5 credits. Okay, so major contribution in your promotion rules. So definitely you need to create your lab as well as your theory in single attempt so as to go for your second year or third year. Okay, so if you see the assessment process, how do they evaluate? How do they assess the students? There are 2 types of assessments. We already familiar with this because in your first semester also we did in that same way. So there will be an internal assessment and there will be an external assessment. Okay, so internal assessment, for that we have 30 marks, and in that 30 marks for theory, we are talking about for theory, in that 30 marks, 20 marks we are conducting the conducting the internal exams. Okay, we are conducting the internal exams for 20 marks, and 10 marks based on the assignments what you submit, or based on the what we call tasks the faculties are giving to you to complete. So based on that they will award the 10 marks. Okay, then external assessment we have 70 marks, and this 70 marks you will write an external exam, theory exam for the university, and they will evaluate your paper and they will give the marks for this 70 marks. Okay, so similar to that, for lab also we have both internal as well as external assessments, and marks for internal assessment for the lab is 25 marks, and for external we will conduct a lab internal. Okay, like how we are conducting theory internals, we will also conduct lab internals, and we award, I mean we evaluate and we award the marks for this 25. Okay, 25 marks. And then there will be an external lab exam, and for that we have 50 marks contribution. Hopefully you understood this complete course structure. So we have theory as well as lab, and it is a core subject. If you complete the theory, you will get 3 credits, and if you complete the lab, you will get 2 credits. Okay, when it comes to assessment, internal marks 30 for the theory subject, and external marks 70 for the theory subject. And for the lab, internal marks 25 and external marks 50. So theory overall total it is 100 marks, and for lab the overall total it is 75 marks. Hope you understood. So yes, before discussing the syllabus, we need to go through this course outcomes. So outcomes are something whenever you are going for a course, or whenever you are going for a particular thing to complete, particular job, particular event to complete, what sort of output you will get. I mean, what sort of handy thing you will get from that. So, being a course, programming for problem solving, when you complete this course throughout this semester, at the end of the semester, what you will achieve, what sort of confidence you have in you. Okay, so that comes under course outcomes. So if you see, after completion of the course, the student will be able to, this particular statement, it clearly states that whatever points we are going to discuss, we are about to discuss, they are the outcomes of this particular course, outcomes of this PPS course. That's the reason they set course outcomes. Okay, the output of this course. Okay, so the first course outcome, if you see, you will be able to write some simple algorithms for arithmetic and logical problems. Not only the mathematical calculations, but also some real-time logical problems also you will be able to solve once you complete this PPS subject. Okay, so the next thing, you will be able to translate the algorithm into a program. So basically in your first unit, the major part goes to this thing only. Okay, we'll have a real-time problem in our hand, a real-time or computational problem in our hand, and for that problem to solve, we write an algorithm, and we see the process of converting that algorithm into a program. So algorithm to program. What is an algorithm? What is a program? How we are going to achieve all these things? Everything we do step by step. Okay, so writing a program is nothing but, as you might be aware of this thing, that in PPS we are going to learn, or we are going to study a new type of programming language, a new type of language, that is C language. So what is C language? What is the importance of C language? Why we need to learn a computer programming language? All these questions will be answered. Very soon all these questions will be answered. Okay, so the first course outcome we have seen, that is formulating the simple algorithms, and the second course outcome is the ability to convert, okay, the ability to translate the algorithm into a program, a C program. That also you will understand. Okay, then yes, when you're writing a computer program, there is a possibility that these computer programs will have some errors. Okay, What do you mean by an error? In the sense, it's a kind of mistake. You understood it, you understand it as a mistake. Okay, I mean, we need to give more explanation on this one, what is an error, but it is too early to give that sort of explanation. That's why I'm not revealing it to you. So for now, whenever I'm saying an error, you simply remember it as a mistake. Okay, so yeah, if your computer program is having some mistakes, we need to test. Okay, we need to test for those mistakes. So testing, executing programs, and correcting the syntactical and logical errors. So what is syntactical error? What is logical error? Once again, a question. Okay, that will be solved very soon. So testing the programs, executing the programs for syntactical and logical errors. So the student will also become able to do this job. Okay, so he should be able to do the testing of a program, execution of a program, and removing syntactical and logical errors. Okay, hopefully you understood. So then the next point, next course outcome is, yeah, these are basically the programming constructs. Okay, programming constructs like your conditional branching, they said, and they said iterations. Okay, they also said a recursion. These three, you remember it as programming constructs. So programming constructs are nothing but building blocks of a programming language. Okay, building blocks of a programming language. Let us assume we go to the natural language, take the example of English. Okay, take the example of English. English is a language. Okay, and this language, why we need in order to have a proper communication with others. So if you want to interact with a third party, a third person in the real world, definitely you need a medium. Definitely you need a language. That we already know. Okay, I don't go to that basic level that you don't know the language, how you will interact, all those things we will not do. See, directly we know that the use of a language, whether it is a computer language or a programming language, whatever it is, the use of a language is something in order to have a proper communication, or in order to establish the communication, we are using the language. Okay, so that the two parties will share their feelings with each other, or the one party will command to the other party in order to get some job done. Okay, assume you are constructing a house. Okay, you have a plot and you want to construct a house over there. Is it possible for you to construct that house solely? No, not possible. As an individual, person, you cannot construct that house by your own. Definitely you need a team of people. So immediately what you will do, you will hire a team of people for the construction of this house. Okay, so how, I mean, you have hired the let us assume that you have hired the team of people. Immediately do they start the construction? No, they need inputs, they need instructions from you, isn't it? They need instructions from you in order to construct the house. So how much plot you are having, and where you want your kitchen, where you want your dining room, okay, your bedroom, and all your toilets, okay, your parking area, how many floors you want. Okay, all these inputs they need from you. So how you explain those inputs to the team of people? In the sense, with the help of a language, isn't it? So you explain them in any of the natural language that you need your house in a specific way. So after that, what they will do, what the team of people will do, they start working for you, and in a period of time they will give the output, that is nothing but a properly constructed house according to your needs. So this complete thing, whatever we discussed just now, it is something like solving a real-time problem in our computer world. Okay, so here also I have a problem. Let us assume I have a problem and I want the solution to that problem. So to get the solution, what I am doing, I'm not hiring the team of people. I have a computer and I have a computational problem. I don't have any physical problem like construction of a house. Okay, definitely construction of a house means we have to go for the manpower only, isn't it? Because we need effort over there, physical effort over there. So definitely we have to go for manpower. But when it comes to computational problems, we need some sort of computing device in order to accomplish, isn't it? So that computing device is nothing but your computer. So now I have a problem and I have a entity which can solve my problem, the computer. So now the thing, because it is a real-time problem, because it is a unique problem, okay, it is a unique and real-time problem, real-time computational problem, I have to explain that problem to the computer so that the computer can solve that problem. So how I can explain? Okay, do the computer understand my language? No, it will not understand. It will not understand any of the natural languages. So what the computer will understand then? It will understand only the zeros and ones. Maybe you might have studied in your elementary level, like in your 6th class, 7th class, 8th class in physics or modern physics subjects. They might have told you or they might have teach you that the computer will understand only the zeros and ones, only the binary language. We call it as binary language. Okay, the computer will understand only the machine language or binary language, just the synonyms. When I'm saying machine language and when I'm saying binary language, they are just the synonyms. So the computer will understand only the machine language, only the binary language, and we people, okay, we humans, we understand only the natural languages. Natural languages are nothing but any language you take, any human language you take, any native language or internationally recognized language you take. All the languages comes under natural language only. When I'm saying natural language, it means a human language. It may be Urdu, it may be Hindi, it may be English, it may be German, okay, it may be any language. So humans, okay, they understand only the natural languages. Okay, being a human, I understand the language, what the natural languages, whatever I know. Okay, so likewise, humans will understand only the natural languages and computer will understand only the machine languages. Okay, machine language or binary language. So now what will happen when two parties are having the language difference? Whenever two parties are having the language difference, what we need? We need a translator over there, isn't it? We need a translator, or we need a common language with both parties will understand, isn't it? So when I'm saying language difference, it means that there will not be any common language between the two parties. So immediately what will happen? We need a translator over there. So what the translator will do, it will convert one language into other language so that the communication will establish over there. Okay, so here also, when we are writing our computer programs and the computer will understand only the machine language, we have to find out a way so that we can write a program in some language, and before giving that program to the computer, it needs to be translated or it needs to be converted into the machine language. Okay, here, as this is our first class, I'm just raising the questions. I'm not answering many of the questions. Okay, the answer to these questions will do throughout this semester. Don't you think that sir is giving only the questions and he's not answering any of the questions? So I just have to raise the I just have to open the what we call questions, and when we close these questions, in the sense one by one we close these questions. Okay, throughout this semester, one by one we close all these questions. Hopefully you understood. So Programming constructs, language constructs we are talking about, programming language constructs we are talking about. So English being a language, it is having different constructs like nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives. Okay, all these articles, all these are constructs of English language. So based on these things, based on nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, okay, based on all these programming constructs only, your English language is built. So when we are studying or when we are learning the English language, definitely we have to understand and we have to learn all these language constructs. Basically, we starts with nouns, then pronouns, then adjectives, adverbs, tenses, articles. Okay. Likewise, we discussed, we study all these things. So being a programming language, your C language, it is also having some of the constructs, some of the language constructs. Those language constructs are nothing but your conditional branching, iteration, recursion, identifiers, variables, pointers, arrays, many different things we have in C language. So basically, throughout this semester, throughout this first semester, we are going to study only the programming language constructs. We are going to gain the knowledge about these programming constructs only. Okay. So the next thing, yeah, this is our fourth course outcome, that implement conditional branching, iteration, recursion. Then we also have decomposing the given problem into functions and synthesize a complete program using divide and conquer approach. Definitely this divide and conquer approach, it is one of the best mechanism in programming world, that also we are going to study as part of our curriculum. Then these arrays, pointers, structures, okay, the student will be able to formulate the programs or formulate the algorithms using these arrays, pointers and structures. Okay, these are also your programming constructs only. Then the student will also able to apply the programming to solve matrix addition, matrix multiplication, and different searching and sorting techniques. Okay, these things also you will understand how we do matrix addition in computational world. I mean, how we write a program for performing matrix addition and how we write a program to perform matrix multiplication, searching, sorting, all these things we study. Then yeah, not only that, different types of numerical problems, in order to solve these different types of simple numerical problems, like finding the roots. Here there is a mistake. This is roots, finding the roots of a quadratic equation. Okay, then differentiation of functions and simple integration. All these things also you will be able to do with the help of what we call C programming. Once you complete this PPS course successfully, you will be able to do all these type of problems. Okay, so when it comes to syllabus, our entire syllabus, it is divided into 5 different units, 5 units. Okay, from unit 1 to unit 5. And how many number of sessions I need in order to complete these units, I have written over here. So this is our course plan, we can say, lesson plan or course plan we can say. So the first unit, in order to complete the first unit, I need 12 active sessions. Then second unit, for second unit 8 sessions, 12 sessions for third unit, 10 and 10 sessions each for fourth and fifth unit. So overall, if you count all, if you sum all these sessions, you will get 52 sessions. So I need 52 active theory sessions in order to complete the 5 units. Inshallah, we'll do on time all these things. Okay. So the first unit name, Introduction to Programming, Idea of Algorithm and Representation of Algorithm. Okay. Second unit, Control Structures and Arrays. Third unit, Basic Algorithms, Functions, passing arrays to functions. Fourth unit, recursion and structures. Fifth unit, pointers and files concepts. Okay, so all these things we have to complete in 52 sessions. Okay, so unit wise syllabus we see now. The first unit, as I've already given the name, I mean the chapter names in your first unit, that is the first concept, introduction to programming. This is completely the basics related to the computer. So the internal hardware components, software components, how these components will work, I mean which component is used to take the input and which component is used to display the output. All these things we study inside the first chapter, that is introduction to the computer. In that, as you can see, disks, memory, processor, where a program is stored and executed, operating system related stuff, and compilers, etc. we are going to discuss in your first unit, first chapter of first unit. And in order to understand all these things, we need 4 sessions excluding today's session. Then the idea of algorithm. What is an algorithm and how this algorithm can be written and how this algorithm is used, I mean act as a mediator between the program and the logical problem. Okay, so in order to do that we need only 2 sessions. And then the representation of algorithm, that algorithm whatever we have written or whatever we have understood, how we can convert that algorithm into flowchart, how we can convert that flowchart into a pseudocode, then the program, all those things. And we also solve different types of examples with the help of these algorithms, flowcharts, pseudocode and program. Okay, then we need to know what is a source code, what is object code, what is executable code. All these things also we need to understand. Then the concept of variables, why we need variables in a programming language and what are data types. Okay, then how the variables and memory locations related to one another, that also we need to see. And the syntactical and logical errors, syntax and logical errors in compilation. And finally the object code and executable code. All these things we need to understand as part of your third chapter in your first unit, representation of algorithm. And for this we need 6 sessions. So overall, to complete the first unit we need 12 sessions. Then go to the second unit, very small unit, your second unit. We have only the control structures to study and then the arrays to study. So control structures, in that we discuss about what are operators, what are operands, what you mean by operation. Okay, then different types of operations like arithmetic and yeah, we have like around 8 to 11 different types of operators, or 8 to 11 different types of operations, I mean to say, that we will study over here. Then we have the conditional branching. Okay, then loops also we study. And yeah, using these conditional statements and iterative statements, that is nothing but loops, how we can write the programs and how we can do conditional branching and iterative branching, that we see inside this control structures concept. Then we have arrays. They are of 3 types, I need to say: 1-dimensional, 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional also, but we study only 2 types over here: 1D array and 2D array. 1D stands for 1-dimensional arrays and 2D stands for 2-dimensional arrays. Okay, then we also see the difference between a character array and a string. Okay, what is a character array and what is a string? To complete the control structures concept in your second unit we need 4 sessions, and to complete the arrays concept in your second unit we need another 4 sessions. So overall 8 sessions we need to complete the second unit. Then we have the third unit, basic algorithms, functions and passing arrays to functions. So the concept of basic algorithm, in that we discuss 2 things. The first one is searching and then the sorting. How we perform searching operation and what is searching and how we perform sorting operation. Okay, then we also discuss some of the concepts like finding the roots of a quadratic equation. Finding the roots of a quadratic equation. It is the important concept for your lab as well. Okay. Yeah, to complete these basic algorithms, we need 5 sessions. Then the concept of functions, the divide and conquer strategy. With the help of functions only, we achieve divide and conquer strategy. As a course outcome, we discussed this divide and conquer strategy. The student will be able to able to do divide and conquer strategy. Somewhere we discussed, yeah, as a fifth CIVO, fifth course outcome. Here we have divide and conquer approach. With the help of functions, we are going to achieve divide and conquer strategy. Okay, that we discuss over here inside your third unit. So functions concept, yes, what is a function and how we can use functions in C language, how we can pass the parameter passing techniques. It is one of the LAQ. Okay, how we can pass the parameters to functions, that also we study over here. Then passing the arrays to functions, how we can pass the individual elements from an array, or how we can pass the addresses of individual elements, and how we can pass the entire array as an element. All those things we study over here. So in order to complete the functions concept, we need 5 sessions, and passing arrays to functions, we need only 2 sessions. So on the whole, overall 12 sessions to complete the third unit. Then we have the fourth unit, and fourth unit basically we study about recursion and structures. Okay, 2 things. To complete the recursion concept, we need 5 classes, 5 sessions. To complete the structures concept, we need 5 more sessions. So overall 10 sessions. Lastly, fifth unit, the pointers and introduction to files, introduction to file handling. To complete the pointers, we need 6 classes, and the files concept, we need 4 classes. So overall 10 sessions we need. If everything goes smooth without the disturbance of this COVID rules and all, inshallah we'll complete the entire syllabus in 52 sessions. Okay, if something goes in between, like your external exams are pending, so I have to give a break in between the course discussion. So when we resume the course after the break, again I have to revise the previous concepts so as to get you people on track. So definitely I need 1 or 2 sessions over there. So that extra session consideration we can do. Okay, so be ready and be prepared for this PPS course, and believe me, it is not an easy course. You can have the interaction with your what we call same academic year students of CSC and civil, because they have completed the PPS course in first semester. You can get the idea of this PPS, how difficult, how easy it is. The concept is very simple over here. If you understand and if you give some time, if you pay attention, the subject is very easy. If you don't do these things, if you don't give effort, don't give time, okay, and simply you want everything to come to your head, means it will not happen, believe me. And it is not something that you can do one day batting and you can go and write the exam. It is not like that also. And especially for IT people, I'm stressing this point again and again. See, this PPS, if you don't give time, don't give effort, okay, don't understand over here, believe me, you are going to struggle a lot in your upcoming semesters, because after this we'll be having data structures in your third semester, then you will be having Java programming in fourth semester. And in order to understand those two languages, Java and C++, you need the knowledge of C. There is no excuse on that one. There is no what we say escaping from this subject, and if you escape, you struggle a lot. Okay, so yeah, in order to yes, these are some of the suggested readings from the university. And apart from these textbooks, I will also give my notes, previous year solved papers, many different things we have handy that you can utilize and that you can prepare for your knowledge. Okay, so this uh, Shazam's Outline, the first textbook from McGraw-Hill. It is the textbook suggested by the university. I have the soft copy of this book on my blog. You can download and you can refer it. Then there is one more textbook, that is Balaguru Swamy, Programming in NCC. It is also from McGraw-Hill publication, Tata McGraw-Hill publication. This also you can refer. He's an Indian author, so his English will be very easy for you to understand. Balaguru Swamy textbook. Okay, so apart from these two, I suggest one more textbook, that is Programming for Problem Solving, Farrozen and Gilbert. They are international authors. Their English will be quite difficult for you to understand. So whatever concepts we are referring, I mean whatever I am teaching in my classes, I am referring that Farrozen and Gilbert textbook only. Okay, so if you have the textbook handy, you can easily grasp the concepts and you can easily understand the concepts. If you feel difficulty in understanding the concepts from that textbook, you can go to my notes. In my notes, I have given you what you need. Not more than that, nothing less than that. Okay, what exactly you need in order to prepare for the external exam, those things are there in your notes. Okay, so then the next thing, yes, in order to, as I said, it is a programming language, and definitely we can't do the normal theory discussion on that one. Definitely we need to go with practical sessions. So whenever it is possible, don't think that we are doing everything like a theory thing over here. I will execute the programs and I will show you the output of those programs in real-time class itself, in our class itself. Okay, so for that we are using two tools. One is Dev CPP and the other one is Turbo CPP. We mostly use in my theory sessions, I'm using this Dev CPP only. Okay, but in our college labs we are having Turbo CPP. So you need to have the knowledge of both these tools. You need to know how to use Dev C++ as well as you need to know how to use Turbo C++. These two things will do. So first I will show you the how this Dev C++ environment. So once, I mean, I have a separate video of how to download this Dev CPP from the internet and how you can install this Dev CPP into your computer. Okay, so quickly go and see that. Here when you install this Dev CPP, you will get this icon. So simply double click on this icon to open the Dev CPP environment. So this is the Dev CPP environment. Here we write our C programs and we compile our C programs. Go to the source code, source file. Here you write your programs. So like I'm writing one simple program, stdio.h, yeah, int main of void. Then here I'm writing hello group B students. I have written one simple program over here. Now save the program. Yeah, all this procedure, all this process, step by step we do when it actually comes in your syllabus. Okay, just I am demonstrating something over here so that you will have an idea of how to use this Turbo C environment or Dev CPP environment and what exactly we do over here. So I'm writing some sample.c, my program name. Okay, the program got saved. Now compile it. Yeah, here it will show the error count and warnings count. It is not having any errors and any warnings. So simply go run. See, like this we get the output. So whatever I am writing in my program, whatever I am printing from my program, I am getting that thing on the output screen. Hello group B students, likewise. So in this way, this is what I have done right now. It is a simple application. Okay, a simple application to print hello group B students. So that I am doing over here. So in that way, we do more and more logic processing and what we call program development in our regular classes. Okay. So Dev C++ environment, already we got an idea. This Turbo C++ environment, it will be something like this, a blue screen with a menu bar. So like this, you will have the Turbo C++ environment. It is not installed in my Windows 10 PC, and in my Windows 10 PC it is not supporting. So basically, so that's the reason I'm not showing the working environment. I just took the screenshot and I'm showing that screenshot to you people. So over here we'll write our same program, whatever program we have written in Dev CPP, that same program we write in Turbo CPP as well. Simply write the program, compile the program, execute the program to get the output. So that's it for today's session. Yes, in every session I'm going to ask few questions as an assignment, and those questions you have to answer in the Google form. Okay, so I'm not even going to put the question over there. The question also, you, in order to know the question also, you have to you have to watch the video. Okay, my question over here is, okay, so what is the full subject name? So you have to write the subject name, then subject code, okay, then the number of credits. This is for theory. Okay, the same thing you have to do for lab also. Okay, what is the lab name, what is the lab code, and what is the number of credits once you complete the lab, you are going to gain once you complete the lab. Okay, so for theory, write this subject name, subject code, and number of credits. For lab also do the same thing, lab name, lab code, and lab credits, number of credits. Okay, hope you understood. This question as an assignment you must have to solve. If you solve this, then only you will get the attendance, otherwise you won't get the attendance. Remember this one. And attendance in this semester, it is very much particular, and you people know, I mean, if you don't know, just go and ask the CSE students. We are not going to give any attendance, okay, until and unless you attend, until and unless you watch the videos. Okay, hopefully you will obey the rules, you will follow the rules to get succeed in this subject as well as in your academics. Thank you very much, students.